At 7 o'clock, feel free to start talking.
I would like to call budget and appropriations order at 6 p.m. Thank you everyone for joining. A couple of reasons why I wanted to do this meeting on an off night. Well, one, I just wanted to all right. Todd, did you? It's saying I'm muted. Can you guys hear me all right?
Can now.
All right, perfect. So call this meeting of budget and appropriations order at 6 o'clock. So a couple of reasons why I wanted to do this on an off night is, and it was kind of validated last night by Councilor Conti's announcement that the capital improvement book will be coming down next Tuesday. So I think this is a great time to get the conversation started about the vehicle maintenance and replacement program. I also felt that where we were having this meeting tonight, it would make sense to vote my several motions out tonight. But I wanted to get really a robust discussion because Rick, Todd, and I, we're on the same committee, so we can't talk about this stuff outside of a called meeting. Kathleen, Peter, Vice President Jackson, we had the conversation down at the water department back in October, I believe it was October, really about where we are. And it got, I think the four of us kind of had the same idea at the same time, like we've got to do better to plan. And how do we plan these major purchases, especially in light of a pandemic? And I just think about what Chief Hegney does in terms of how he rotates out the cruisers. And, you know, that might not work for every department, but it'd be real nice if we could come up with something that would augment the capital improvements in the budget plan to really talk about the vehicles. Because, you know, we could have an opportunity here, friends, where we could actually change how this is done across the board. You know, maybe we start looking at, is there possibility for cross-functional, cross-departmental vehicles? How do we centralize, standardize when it makes sense without taking away any autonomy from the department heads, from the administration? So if it's all right with you folks, and you know, I'm not going to stress out over Robert's rules tonight. I want it to be a real open forum, respectful conversation as we tend to do. But I'll vote my motions out. They're all really, really quick motions. So if you don't mind me just banging those out real quick, and then we'll jump into the meat of the discussion. Because Rick, what I wanted to pick up the phone and call you a couple times, but I'm like, you know what? It treads too close to open meeting laws. I think this is an opportunity where we can see the marriage of capital improvements and budget as we've done in the past. So be a good opportunity to kind of dust off that. But from the docket of February 2nd, 2021, I entertain a motion to authorize payment of $956.02 from account 2602-538-095 off-street parking revolving fund, parking professional service for an FY20 invoice from Passport Labs Incorporated.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. So on December 23rd, 2020, our parking processing vendor, Passport Labs, alerted us our May 20 invoice was still outstanding. Kathy Rigo immediately responded that they had never received it. Passport sent it out on the May 31st. Sent us the May 31st invoice on January 14th. So the typical bill from Passport is usually around $5,000, give or take. But this was only 1 week of parking enforcement due to May. And if you remember, at that time, we were shut down. So this is a bill which is less money than they usually are, of course, due in part to COVID, also due to COVID, which is why we're seeing more and more of these bills coming in after the fiscal year. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Councilor Conti? I'll take that as an aye. Got it. All right, from the docket of January 19th, 2021, in order to properly close Fund 3316, Water Storage Facility, I entertain a motion to transfer $22,779.63 from account 331659900, Water Storage Facility, other financing uses to account 3337-499000, Park Place, Lonsdale Ave, other financing sources to fund the cleaning and lining of Park Place and Lonsdale Ave.
Second.
So as we know, when we have these big projects and they're done, we close these accounts. So the projects are done, it's time to close the accounts. Admittedly, I can get more information for the meeting Tuesday night if anyone has any additional questions, but pretty boilerplate stuff we have right here. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. From the docket of January 19th, 2021, in order to properly close Fund 3321 Blake's Pond Dam, I entertain a motion to transfer $8.50 from account 3321-599000 Blake's Pond Dam, other financing uses to account 3337-499000 Park Place, Lonsdale Ave, other financing sources to fund the cleaning and lining of Park Place and Lonsdale Ave.
Second.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Before I call for a vote, Rick, every time I read anything about the dams, I think about 3 or 4 years ago with the dam report. And, you know, it was funny, the dam report. So just thought I'd throw that in there. But if there's no other conversation, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. From the docket of January 19th, 2021, in order to properly close Fund 3326, Route 95 Water Main, I entertain a motion to transfer $2,707.31 from account 332659900, Route 95 Water Main, other financing uses to account 3337-499000, Park Place, Lonsdale Ave, other financing sources to fund the cleaning and lining of Park Place and Lonsdale Ave.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. I believe this closes out the 95 water main, which was right down by Fian on North Ave. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, I have 2 more. From the docket of January 19th, 2021, in order to properly close Fund 3331 Vehicle Equipment, I entertain a motion to transfer $290.56 from account 3331-599000 Vehicle Equipment, other financing uses to account 3337-499000 Park Place, Lonsdale Ave, other financing sources to fund the cleaning and lining of Park Place and Lonsdale Ave.
Second.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Finally, from the docket of January 19th, 2021, in order to properly close Fund 3328 HVAC Phase 2, I entertain a motion to transfer $197,928 from account 3328-599000 HVAC Phase 2, other financing uses as follows: $180,214 to account 3337-499000 Park Place, Lonsdale Ave, other financing sources to fund the cleaning and lining of Park Place and Lonsdale Ave, and $17,714.05 to account 3333-499000 Roy Ave, other financing sources to fund the Roy Avenue project.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. So I think what we're seeing here, team, again, is we've seen these projects come in a little bit because of the COVID pandemic. Contractors looking for the work. So when these projects are coming due, we have a little extra still left over. So we're transferring these to close one account, but still fund other accounts. Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that. That is all the motions I have tonight. Bang through those pretty quickly. Boilerplate stuff. We'll take those when we can. So I kind of wanted to open up the discussion about when we think about the vehicle maintenance and replacement, what are some of the pain points that we see as counselors, right? Just kind of from our own vantage point, what are some of the things that makes us scratch our heads, sit back and say, why is this like that? So, I think that this isn't going to be one of these like, all right, let's brainstorm, put it on paper, and we're done. I think it's going to be a piece of a longer conversation. But I think we have some great opportunities where we don't have to reinvent the wheel per se. We can just retread it. And we have capital improvements and, Councilor Conti, I know in the past you've had department heads come down and talk about the capital improvements. I'm not sure if you have that intention this year or not.
Let me inform you about what's been happening. I've been looking for, as you've been talking, the Division of Labor Services from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue has a technical assistance bureau. The technical assistance bureau has published a capital improvement financial management plan that I presented to the mayor a couple of weeks ago and asked him to call together his finance team to discuss whether or not they could implement this spreadsheet in the capital improvement plan. The reality is the capital improvement plan is not a plan without a budget. And all of the administrators in the past have only used free cash to finance capital improvements. That is not acceptable in my mind. It's not acceptable in the Department of Labor Services division of the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, and it's not advisable in the Technical Assistance Bureau advisors. So I've given the mayor the spreadsheet. He's going to call a finance meeting with Jeremy and Laura and Deb Gould, and they're going to discuss whether or not they can give this an attempt, so that in the capital improvement plan book that comes out next January, there'll be a budget section in the back of which capital improvement projects that are of urgent priority will be planned on how they're going to be financed over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And for capital improvement projects that are, and this would include vehicles, Jay,
Sure.
would all be lumped together, so you can see in 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, how much is going to be bonded, how much is going to be pulled out of free cash, and it's planned out in advance. So when we approve the capital improvement plan and send a resolution to the mayor, we're basically saying we like the financial plan for the next 5 years. So my committee is going to get this all in 2 weeks, next week.
Mm-hmm.
The capital improvement plan is being presented to the full council next week by Gary. The following week, I'm meeting with my committee and I'm going to expose them to the spreadsheet and tell them what we're trying to do with the finance team in the city. And I'd like to get some assurances from the mayor that has been well received by the finance committee before I do that. So I'm hoping that your push to get a vehicle maintenance plan together with my push to get a focused budgeted portion of the capital improvement plan can work together to cause the change that I think is needed for the capital improvement plan to be a real capital improvement plan. I'll shut up and listen to you.
No, please don't shut up, because if we were in person, man, I would give you the biggest high five, because that is really a wonderful start. So as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, so that's one aspect, right? So I think we're going to approach this at several different ways, meet in the middle. So we need to get an idea of how many vehicles we have across the city. What are their uses? What are they by department? What's the date of purchase? Do we look at it through years owned, mileage, or hours of usage, right? Because what we need to be able to do for the budget, and Rick, you and I have talked ad nauseum about the need for budgeted finance capital improvements. So if we can come up with a plan, and even if that's just it's a plan or a tool where this council and future councils will have to be able to plan and understand. So every 3 years, we're ordering 7 cruises, right? So that helps us plan. And then we kind of back into the funding. Is it through capital improvements? Is it, is there another revenue source that maybe could help to pay for a semblance of it? So I just think that we're looking at this, which was born out of necessity in the sense that we had those water vehicles that were really on their last legs. And, my first year on council, Peter and Rick, I think you remember we did the tour of the old DPW yard and those old vehicles. And it was very similar in the sense to what we saw at the water department. But I remember John Clover had taken old signs, like old metal signs, street signs and do not enter signs, and they welded it to the floor of the front seat of the vehicles. So, we saw the, thinking about that Ford Ranger, was it the Ford Ranger, Kathleen, Kate, and Peter, that we saw where the,
Yes.
The water department, yes.
Yes.
and the fumes were coming up. So I'm going to pull back my conversation now because I don't want to dominate it, but that's really kind of what I'm thinking. Kathleen.
Yes. Thank you, Jay. I know when I was there with you and Kate and Peter, I remember saying that, we need some kind of protocol because in my limited experience compared to you all on the council, I've heard repeatedly about the different maintenance programs that the departments have, which is a concern. And I know Vice President Jackson has mentioned that several times. Why does one department seem to take better care, if you will, of their vehicles than the other department? So I think there are maintenance issues that we need to address. I think it's also just good use of public funds to be on top of these things. These are high dollar items. They represent large expenses. So I did a little research, and there are some cities and towns that have what they call a fleet management program. That does, I think, what you're looking to do, Jay. They evaluate the vehicle based on what its intended purpose is. They can also assess it at different points, how much use does it has, how much mileage. They can determine whether it can be rotated, recycled, repaired, or replaced. So there's a whole bunch of criteria. But I think there's several reasons, one of which is certainly financial, but I also just think it makes good sense. It's also in the interest of the safety of the staff who are using these vehicles. It's in the best interest of the city that when these departments go out to do their jobs, that they're in vehicles that that looks matter, that these are vehicles that look like they're taken care of and that the public funds are being utilized respectfully and to maximum impact. So those are the thoughts that struck me, but I am also concerned about the possibility of a citywide maintenance or repair program too. I think that aligns with what we want to do. And I know this has come up as well several times in some of our conversations. So that's something as well I'm thinking about in this process. Thanks.
No, great. So Kathleen, before I recognize Councilor Blair, are you able to share any of that research with the fleet management programs?
Yeah, I sent it to you on October 28th, but I can certainly resend it. It's just 2 examples I found of fleet management programs. I think actually they're both in Massachusetts. No, one's in Maine.
Okay.
And they're pretty detailed, but just it's been done. It's how other cities and towns do this. But like you said, because they're all city vehicles, whether they're police vehicles or DPW, what, they're all city vehicles. They're all public used, bought with public funds. So they're all worth equal consideration and equal treatment. It's not that one's better than the other, but I will resend that to Virginia and have her send it to you, Jay.
Send it out to the council.
To have Virginia send it to the whole council.
Yeah, just so everyone has it,
Okay.
because I think it's important that, everything Rick said, everything you said, like, it's just showing that there's so many different areas we can approach this from. In a program like this, there's really no downside. And, I think that you're right with the optics. You really are, because if someone shows up from the water department and the muffler's dragging, and you're going to be like, or any department, right? Someone comes to, you got a wild animal in your car, and all of a sudden the animal control vehicle's got the dragging muffler and a bumper dragging down. You're not going to be filled with confidence.
Right.
Councilor Blair.
Just a little information. I chaired the Public Works Department for I don't know, 16 years, somewhere around there. And when they were on Wall Street, they were underfunded. Our equipment was terrible. I worked with both Judy Robbins and Mayor Dumas to try to bring it back up. The big jump was when we got the new garage, and they actually had facilities to work on some of their stuff. But for most of my tenure on the council is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, that doesn't work. You got to maintain it, but you also have to replace it before it breaks down. I got to stick up for some of these departments, like the water department, for instance, or wastewater. They don't have the equipment, or they don't have basically the manpower to do a maintenance program. If you're going to get into a city garage, say, like some of the towns do, you're going to have to step up to the plate and pay a going wage for a mechanic. You can't start a mechanic, or you won't get a mechanic to come to Attleboro for $26 an hour. It's not feasible in today's industry out there. You know, it used to be, I used to hire mechanics for a little over the minimum wage back when I started, because they were at the low end of the totem pole. But they're not anymore. They're technicians.
Yeah.
And in order to get that type of technician, you got to pay, Jay. Pay
Yeah,
peanuts
that's
for
yeah.
and you
Sorry.
need I've been a proponent of a city garage for a long time. But you got to step up to the plate, pay the money, buy the right equipment. They don't have to test equipment. And basically, these other departments, other than the highway yard, they don't have a crew to do it.
Right.
They don't have the manpower. You know, somebody's assigned to it, but I think wastewater has got a couple guys on that crew, and if they're doing something else, and if they got time, they work on the equipment. Same as a water department. You got a 3 or 4 man crew that's in charge of all the maintenance down there, plants, equipment, the plowing, the groundskeeping. It's tough for these departments.
Yep.
So I think if you want to do something as far as a maintenance program or replacement program, we're going to have to step up to the plate and give them more money. I think they need, like Mr. Conti said, we need a capital improvement plan in each department that gives them money that they can carry over. If you buy a piece of equipment that's good for 10 years, you ought to program out at the end of 10 years that unit's replaced. Not till we have to get down and look at something that's fallen apart and shouldn't be on the road. It's been patched up. If it was in the private sector, it wouldn't get past inspection. You know, so it's been an ongoing problem for the 20 odd years I've been on the council.
Yeah, so a couple of things in response, Pete, right? So first of all, great point. And I don't think this is to say that the departments aren't doing a good job. We know how good of a job the department heads are doing. But to your point, it's been more than 20 years, right? So, you know, like Councilor Conti, our entire lives are government. Our part-time job is government. Our full-time job is government. And Rick, stop me when I'm lying, but the phrase that I heard when I first got to the registry that drove me up a wall, and it still does, it's never been done that way before.
Oh my God, it drives me crazy.
And just because
I hear it all the time.
constantly, right? And we hear it here too. But now's a chance where we can take what we see as an opportunity to make improvements and suggestions, because we don't want to overstep boundaries. We want to stay in the proverbial lanes, no pun intended, as we speak about vehicles. But Pete, I love the idea when you said, and essentially each department should have their own capital improvement line. You know, instead of one capital improvement number for the entire city, let's really start to peel back the layers and be a little more strategic about it. Because I think that we're not going to solve these problems here today. We're not, and probably not even throughout the rest of this term. But I think if we can give each department head a little bit to plan, and Counselor, I'll recognize you in 17 to 24 seconds. If we can have a plan, a piece of paper, something tangible that says, okay, Parks and Forestry, you have these vehicles, here's when you bought each one, here's the expected life. We're in year 5 of a 10 years. So in 2031, what's the plan to replace that? And when it gets to so many hours. So I think this is all just about how do we get a little more strategic from a fiscal standpoint to be able to plan for these, because to a lot of the points that we've heard already is we're riding these things into the ground. And, we should never put one of our city workers in a situation where they're driving a truck where these nauseous, toxic fumes are coming up. I think I went over my 24 seconds, but Councilor Conti.
So I just emailed you the capital targets workbook. And I sent it to you and Todd. And I'd share it with you on the screen, but unfortunately, Virginia sent me the link on my iPhone, and this is what the spreadsheet looks like. And that, as you can see down here, there's a summary, there's an analysis, there's revenues, there's the tax levies blended in, the state aids blended in, the local receipts, the debit to the capital improvement plan, and the amortization. It's all figured into the spreadsheet, and the macros are already built into the sheet. So you can see it goes from fiscal year 24, 23, 22. So you just change those as we go forward.
Wow.
This has been around for a very long time. And Jay, your whole program for the vehicle replacement plan starts with requesting from Allison Wood a list of the vehicles that are on our insurance plan. So she will make a request from the insurance company to send a list of the cars that are on the insurance plan, and let's start with those. And so you'll be able to see all of the vehicles, all of the departments, and that's where you start this spreadsheet. And I think it'll be a nice, easy, clean beginning for you. And
Great
that
suggestion.
concludes my comments.
Rick, that was the greatest thing I've seen in like 2 weeks. So I'm this sort of stuff like I geek out over. So this is great. Vice President Jackson.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. So listening to all the comments. So along with what Councilor Conti just mentioned, getting started with Allison Wood, also perhaps you might just also reach out to the department heads and have them not only, tell you exactly what vehicles they have, but right now, you know how we just replaced DPW, just got 3 brand new trucks, okay? Wahoo! But they got 3 brand new trucks this year and it takes a year to get them. So maybe now is a time for them to actually start putting that plan in discussion, because it's not going to happen this year, but it could perhaps happen next year and we'll be ready for it. But reaching out to each department head, asking them to actually, go through their fleet, go through and say, okay, this one we've had this long. So yes, I'm going to put a request in. This is going to be my number one that I want for next year, because you're going to give me the money. We're going to buy that one. That's just get them on board right now. So if they start thinking about it, especially where they're already in the capital improvement mood and budget mood. So maybe this will help kind of get them pushing along a little bit farther and faster and more encouraged that they're going to see some difference in their department.
Excellent. I'm just trying to take notes as we speak. So yeah, that's a great point. So what I had intended to do is send an email after this meeting to Virginia to send out to the department heads, kind of saying, hey, budget appropriations with Councilor Blair, Councilor DeSimone, Vice President Jackson, we met, here's what we're talking about. But now we can take that email and it can be a little bit more impactful to your point, Kate, because the budget's on the mind. Come January 1st, they're thinking CIP, they're thinking budget, and they start planning this already in the fall anyway. So I also want to do the same, and I also want to sit down with Gary Eurasian as well. But I just think that these vehicles are so important for so many different reasons. They serve so many functions, and the ability to plan is vital because to your point, Vice President Jackson, is, we buy a fire engine tomorrow, we don't have it up to a year later. We even heard with, what did they say? They ordered one of the water trucks in June and it still hadn't arrived as of October. So there is lag time. So we've got to be able to plan and support the department heads to be able to run their business, take care of the residents, and know that the residents and the city worker are safe. And I think that's really what this all comes down to. Councilor Corbis.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. I love this conversation. Kathleen, I very much like the idea that looking at what other communities do for the fleet management, and if they have a spreadsheet or something like that, I'd love to review that as well. I think that's great. Peter, the idea about having a central maintenance person for the city, I think is incredibly valuable. And we need that to sort of coordinate this and coordinate these sort of pieces. But I agree with Jay that we should also stay in our lane and sort of look at what we can affect. And so with that, one of the things that I struggle with when these requests for vehicles comes down is not really having a good grasp on what vehicles are available across the fleet, and how old are all these different vehicles, and is it really needed? Because of course when the department heads come forward, they're like, oh, we need this, it's incredibly important, and I believe, of course I believe that, but being able to do our due diligence, I think it's incredibly important. So the thing I had wanted to bring up is like Kate said, is to just, let's reach out to each of the department heads and have them send us the information that they have that they're using to track their vehicles within their departments. I hadn't considered what Rick had said about asking Allison Wood for the insurance information. I like the idea of doing both and sort of merging the data together and trying to get a picture of what we're really looking at. So all of that makes sense. And I think based on getting that raw data and sort of thinking about it that way, we can maybe come together, collate the data and come together with a suggestion that we can then send forward to the administration. But once we have that available, I'd love to then hand it back to the administration and say we'd love to be able to get this on a regular basis, because it will really help. It would really help me in my decision making process in general. And so I love that. And so one of the things I wanted to suggest is maybe we can come up with a list of some of the columns or items that we would want included in that data. So obviously the list of vehicles, the status, a rough description of the use for the vehicle, a projected end of life maybe, and then is the replacement currently in the capital improvement book potentially? I don't know what else. I would hate to say we want people to maintain mileage in a spreadsheet. I wouldn't want to add a huge burden onto people, but I don't know if you have other suggestions. And in reviewing the fleet management programs from other communities, it'd be interesting to see what specific things they're tracking so that we could add that suggestion. But generally, I'd love to just have the department heads as a start send us what they have, as opposed to giving them a bunch of extra work.
Yeah, Todd, so that's a great point, right? So one thing, really the last thing I want to ever do in any issue that we're facing is tell the department heads what to do. I think, to an extent, the Sun Chronicle is like to paint me as kind of the department head's rubber stamp. And, historically that's fine, because I can't tell you about the water department, the wastewater. That's their business. Just like, I wouldn't expect that they can tell me how to run my business, nor what I want them to, right? what we can do is be very transparent in why we're doing this. We're doing this so they can have a tool to plan, because wouldn't it be nice if we're sitting there and we're like, hey, wait a second, I might be able to hire an additional body, or because the money we're saving, because we're having a plan, because maybe we can get some leasing, because we're going to have to bring in Deb, we're going to have to bring in Laura and Jeremy on these conversations. But wouldn't it be nice if all of a sudden we're at a point where if we plan this the right way, we can incorporate that a city mechanic. And Pete is absolutely right. You pay bananas, you're getting monkeys, you know. And if we want to attract high quality, someone who can help us maintain this program after we're all gone, we're going to need to really set the groundwork and build flexibility in the ability for future councils and administrations to be really nimble as we're going forward. This is great already. Like, and this has been one of the most productive half hours I've had in some time. You guys are amazing. Do we want to come up with kind of what we want from goals? Like, I'm big when I'm planning things at work. I always have a list of what it is that we're solving for. You know, just so when I craft the email to the department heads, that we're all on the same page. So, you know, Vice President Jackson.
Thank you. Jay, how about if we send you some ideas through email? You know, just throw out things that are going to come to us over the next 24 hours, 48 hours, and then you can compile a list of everything that we're all thinking before you send out that email. And that might help you a little bit better, just if it's already written down for you.
Yeah, I love it. Love that idea. You know, because this conversation, I fully, you know, I'm hopeful. Cautious optimism will rule the day here, that the department heads understand that where we're coming from is just a budgetary plan and tool and a planning mechanism. So we can make sure that they have the vehicles and the equipment that they need, or more the apparatus and equipment that they need to be able to be successful and to provide the services that the residents of the city need and deserve.
Okay. If I could take the floor.
Please.
I'll be candid. You got to be careful that all the department heads report to the mayor.
Yep.
And the mayor's administration and the council is legislation. And the charter says that city councils are not supposed to be involved in administration. And I used to get spanked all the time by Kevin Dumas for sticking my nose in this business. So I think it might be pertinent for you to set up a meeting with the mayor, and when you've gelled your thoughts about how this can come together, sit down with him before you contact the department heads, so that you're not asking for one thing and then on the phone he's behind you saying ignore Jay's letter. You know, you gotta try to get him to buy into the program right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. You know, I certainly plan to sit down with the mayor at some point about this. And my goal was to, when we sit down over the next several weeks, when we're going to discuss the budget, to kind of work this into it. But
perfect timing.
Yeah, and that's really, but I wanted to work with my colleagues first. And, you know, where I'm coming from at this is we're not trying to create policy. We're trying to come up with planning tools, because ultimately we're the ones that are going to have to approve whether it's a loan authorization or a transfer from free cash, because, you know, as you said earlier, man, and I've been pretty vocal about this through 2020, and now is we've got to look at things of what's neat to have, what's nice to have. As much as the charter says that we can't interfere, and I honestly, Rick, appreciate your point. I think we have a duty to be able to, and a responsibility, and we're able to get our ducks in a row. And I think that's really what we're trying to achieve here, because we have every right to make suggestions, whether it's, and I think during budget, you know, I'm kind of like a dog with a bone on this one now. I think that every department should have a line item for if not blanket capital improvements, capital vehicle replacement, you know. But your point is noted, and believe me, it's appreciated.
So I think if you take that approach, that because we control the checkbook,
Yep.
we'd like a little bit more planning on that checkbook. And if you stick to that positioning, you're going to be fine.
Yep.
I think that sounds wonderful, and it's the right approach to take, Jake. So you should have success with this.
Yeah, and I appreciate the council, Rick. I really do. So Kathleen and then Todd.
Thank you, Jay. I just want to say that I appreciate Rick's point about not stepping on the role of the administration, and all due respect to the mayor's office and the mayor. But I do think that Jeremy, it would be super helpful in this instance, right? I mean, he seems to be particularly good at the budget. So having him on board in particular would be, I think, helpful to us. But I did want to say, I agree with Todd. When we get requests for vehicle purchases, I'm very glad we have someone like Peter on the council, because I don't know the difference between an F-250 and an F-350. I'm going with what the department head says. I'm going to defer to them because, like you said, Jay, that's their purview.
Yep.
But at the same time, I want to be able to do my due diligence and make an informed, knowledgeable decision. But I'd like to have a little bit more information to guide my decision, as Todd said. So that's it. Thank you.
No, that's a really great point. And I appreciate that. Council Corbis.
To further a little bit what Councilor Conti was saying, and agree with the points about sort of staying within our lane. Would it make sense to potentially put together a general policy to say from the budget committee, this is what we're looking for? We're looking to see sort of a long-term plan for these budget requests, or for them to come down as part of the budget, to have line items, and as a result, we can work on the wording for the general policy, but as a result, will be supportive of that sort of thing, as opposed to the emergency requests for the Frankensweeper and stuff like that seem to come down and catch us off guard. For those types of things, our default reaction is going to be to say no unless it is truly an emergency. Otherwise, plan it for the following year's budget. It really sort of put together a general policy that we'll try to adhere to within the council, or at least within the budget and capital improvement groups. Does that make sense?
I think it makes great sense. And I think ultimately, I'm kind of likening this to a budget message or a CIP message, where it's the collective thoughts of the body. So this team will work on what we need to work on. We'll come up with something to present to the full council. From there, we present it to the administration. But I think if we're using the tools that Kathleen and Rick talked about, this is going to have real teeth, because we're going to be able to go through and illustrate what we're talking about. We'll be able to see what the impact's going to be. So the short answer to your question, Todd, is yes. I totally agree with that. And I think the Frankensweeper is probably one of the greatest examples we could have used in this situation. So, all right. Anything else? I can't believe how much we just got accomplished in 45 minutes. This is great. So I guess my ask would be, and I'll send I'll send an email to Virginia to send out to the council, requesting that if they have any thoughts about what they want to see. And I think, Kathleen, if you don't mind, I think what we should do is change it from vehicle maintenance replacement to a fleet or a vehicle management program.
Makes sense to me. Yep.
It's so much easier to say.
Yes.
So I'll send that out to Virginia tonight. And then when do we want to meet again? Looking at the committee first, but obviously with the input of Kate and Kathleen.
Love to meet again next week.
Okay. What night works? Does Wednesdays work?
Mhm.
Okay. So we'll also call for a meeting for next Wednesday as well.
Okay.
All right.
6 o'clock.
Huh?
I like 6 o'clock meetings.
Yeah, me too. Me
Jay,
too.
just so I understand, is this project living within budgets and appropriation? Is that where we are? Okay, I didn't know if it was a separate committee. Okay, all right, thank
Yeah.
you.
So initially, when I spoke with President Cooper, and for anyone who knows President Cooper knows he doesn't necessarily care for setting up a plethora of special committees. So he said, we have the budget and appropriations. Why don't we put it there? It makes sense to live there. But, you know, just like during the budget hearings, I want to get everyone involved and just, you know, get their opinion, because there's 11 of us with 11 different points of view. And it's important just to have these type of open and honest conversations to really start to move the dial. Ultimately, what I'd like to see for the third meeting, because I had a November, I did a tour of the high school. Jeremy was there, Deb Gould was there. I had already started speaking with Jeremy Stahl, and kind of told him what we were talking about. And he says, oh, okay, no, it makes perfect sense. And I would like to have him for the third meeting to come down and just kind of say, hey, here's what we're talking about. And this will also give us time to go through the spreadsheet that Rick sent out, so we can kind of stop playing with it. And then after the second meeting, we should have enough teeth to be able to go through and send an email to the department heads.
Thank you.
Councilor Blair.
Yeah, just before you close the meeting, I think it's relative important that we stress that we think a lot of this stuff should be budgeted. There should be a line item for this stuff in each department. And when if they do that, you have to be careful that departments don't spend just because the money's there. When I taught high school back in the 70s and the budgets weren't that big, come the end of the year, my administrator was on my back because I didn't spend some of the money. Got to spend it or you don't get it next year. I don't want that attitude.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You know, I mean, ultimately, what would be nice is if we budget a certain amount, you know, and again, let's just use DPW because they've got a good fleet. We budget for DPW. Whatever they don't use that fiscal year, it's their next fiscal year. And because ultimately the council's going to have that final say on what they do with it, because we have that check and balance.
Yeah, if it's
There's laws
carried,
against that. There's laws against that, Jay. You can't roll over some of the funds that are in the budget.
Yeah, there are certain accounts, and it's going to come down, and this is where Deb's going to be critical in helping us being able to, because you're right, Rick, and I think it's for a stabilization account or special accounts that if it's not, if the wording's not quite right, that it's supposed to sweep to the general fund at the end of the year, end of the
Right.
fiscal year.
yeah, we don't want it swept to the general fund because that's defeating the purpose.
Correct.
Either
Exactly.
that,
Correct.
buy a piece of equipment that sits there for a year and a half without being used, and that happens.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's going to be a couple different prongs to this when we're all said and done. The first and most important, I think, for all of us, it's fact finding. It's getting to understand the fleets. To Kathleen's point earlier, is we don't know everything that we don't know all this about the trucks, you know, in the fleets. This is going to help us with that, because again, you have some pieces of equipment that are hours versus miles. Well, what's that differential? Well, like, how do we come to that point? And how many hours versus miles, and what is that? How does that impact use? You know, and the other thing, honestly, is, you know, Mike Tyler and I are now at a point where we joke about this, but the budget, the bucket truck, right? You know, like, it would have been really, really nice if we had some semblance of a plan. So 5 years ago, we knew, hey, this is going to be coming up. Here's how much we really can get out of this truck, and here's where we need to. So we have the capital improvement, you know, plan, which I think is going to be a nice auxiliary piece to this. So, all right. Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 6:48.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:48. Friends, have a great night.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much for
Night.
the
Thank
conversation.
you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good
Stay
night.
warm, everyone.
Any-
Bye-bye.